Today we're really honoured to have Cindy Luken here. Cindy herself is helping to lead the clean beauty movement with a beautiful range of Lük Beautifood protective lipsticks. I can't wait to hear all about her story. So let's give Cindy a warm welcome.
Thank you, Kayla, and thank you, John, and thank you, ladies, for coming here today. I'm doing a speech tomorrow that's at the Melbourne Beauty Expo, which is it's a big expo, and it's still what we would call heritage brands, in that they're chemical-filled brands, and that's a PowerPoint, and it's very formal, and I've got to do a big presentation. And when Kayla invited me here today, I thought, how fantastic. I'm in my space, I'm in my environment, and I'm with ladies that are absolutely passionate about what's happening in the beauty arena and in the clean beauty arena. So I haven't prepared anything, because what I'd love to know, if I can just ask a few ladies, is why did you come here? What do you want to know? Because I'm going to give you my journey, how I got to creating a clean beauty business, my absolute passion for food, and that's why I make lipstick made from food, and why I'm going to make so many beauty products from food in the future, and a little bit about this toxin-filled space and how we now have beautiful substitute products that we can, not substitute, but real products that we can now use. So, I'm Cindy, and my surname is Luken, and my brand is called Lük Beautifood. And the little umlauts that are on top of the word Lük are actually true from heritage. So my father is German, and it was, I think, my German heritage and being born in Melbourne, 52 years ago, that gave me a love of food and a passion for food. So, my mum was brought up in Eltham and Hurstbridge, and it was like, lamb chops and, 3 dead vegetables, and they had an orchard, and it was just eating one type of fruit, or 2 types of fruit, apples and peaches. And it was a very boring existence when you discovered, or when my mother met my father-to-be, and he'd come from Germany, and it just seemed to be such a more exotic world. And the food, the goulashes and the beautifully cooked meats and the salamis, and Dad's still over in Heidelberg, here in Melbourne. And so she discovered and had a passion for food. And so I grew up in a house where we had delicious food. I discovered I had quite strict parents, so, what I was allowed to eat and what I wasn't allowed to eat was, I don't want to say controlling, but it meant I didn't have junk food, and it meant I therefore grew up in a home where we composted, we all sat down together and ate. When Charmaine Solomon created her first book on Asian food, we drove to Sydney, because we moved to Newcastle, and we drove to Sydney and we got all the ingredients and experimented. And it was that passion for food that led me to be wanting to be a chef. And because I wanted to work with those ingredients in that area that I was passionate about. And but I had this little problem. I wanted to go to university as well. And so I then worked out that if I went to uni and studied a Bachelor of Applied Science in Food and Nutrition, I could then get a wonderful background to food, to nutrition, and to science. And so that's what I did. And when I first came out of uni, I actually went and worked for a catering company, because I still had that chefing desire. I still wanted to cook really well. And I worked for an amazing business in Sydney where I cooked for Prince Charles and Lady Diana for their bicentenary, cooked for all the boardrooms and weddings, and I was exposed to a world that I'd never experienced before. Once you sort of go into society homes in eastern suburbs, you just go, oh my gosh, this is a completely different world. And I still had my desire to work in food science, and what I had discovered along the way is that I wanted to develop products. I love developing products, whether it's food products or now beauty products. I just had this desire to work on things that were new and that were different, and to formulate and have a different approach to what I did. And so when I was at Sara Lee, I actually introduced the Sara Lee ice cream range. Now, if any of you are old enough, back in the late 80s, early 90s, ice cream used to be airy, it used to be fluffy, and it used to be warm. At Sara Lee, I created this cold, creamy, delicious ice cream in which all I put in it for a stabiliser was what we called locust bean gum. So it's a naturally occurring gum. And that just gave it a little bit of stability through the freeze-thaw process. Now, what was so important about that is that it was real food. It was beautiful, real food. It was just real ice cream. It was cream, it was sugar, it was eggs. There wasn't much else in the ice cream. That was back in the 90s. And I also created the sticky date pudding, which is one of the recipes. Yes, I did the sticky date pudding too. And that was the recipe that we actually used in the catering company. I modified it for Sarah Lee. So I loved being in the laboratory. I loved developing products. And somewhere in the stint there, I ended up in the microbiology laboratory as well, working out whether or not we're going to poison Australia with bugs that were growing in the cream. So all-round background experience. But what I really wanted was my own business. I'd discovered that because I'd met my husband-to-be, so we've been married now for 26 years, and he used to work so hard in his own business as a naval architect, 9 months a year, 3 months of the year, he used to then travel. And I just went, oh my God, I want a life like this man. This is fantastic, being able to control your own life, your own destiny. So this little journey I'm taking you on just sort of shows you the layers that went into my life and how I ended up therefore making lipstick, if it seems a bit bizarre as I'm taking you on it. And so I just went, I want a life like him. And so I started I wanted to therefore, in order to have that flexibility, it meant that I was going to have my own business. And I was like, oh my God, what am I going to have my own business in? How am I going to have my own business? I grew up with a truck driver and a school teacher for parents. We weren't exactly entrepreneurial or anywhere in that space. And so because I'd been at Sarah Lee in developing products, I just went, well, maybe I could make biscuits. And that's because, well, a little bit backwards. When I left Sarah Lee, I started catering because you could go and get a job. Like I could go and pitch to get a job to cook for someone, and I'd ask for 50% deposit, and that would get me the money to do it. And then so I used to do the catering, and I used to make these little biscuits that I used to serve as petit four with the chocolates in boardroom lunches, and then for weddings you'd dust them with icing sugar and stuff. Now that little biscuit, I just went, everybody loves it, and I'm sick of working when everybody else is working. It's really hard working in catering, so that was an idea to make turn that into a company that therefore had a product on the shelf. So what I did is I went, okay, I'm going to make biscuits. So I created this company called Luken May biscuits. And I built that business over the next, must have been 5-8 years, into a company that was turning over more than 7 million at wholesale. I then sold it to Byron Bay Biscuits. Yeah, so the Byron Bay Cookies. So Byron Bay Cookies was only doing about 2 million when I was doing 7 million in turnover. And so I sold that business because I couldn't actually work out how I was going to have a family and run a business at the same time. And it's beautiful to see that the brand is out again now. But what happened is that when I sold that business and took some time off, this is around 2003, is when I sold it. Between 2003 and 2006, I took time off. And in 2006, I had my first child, 2008, my second child. Now, what I did during that period of time is I went, I want to have another business, okay? And I knew that I wanted a product that was small. I knew that I wanted a product that had a high invoice value. So, for example, my Lip Nourish is $29.95, whereas biscuits, the packet of biscuits would be $5.95 when you sold them. And if it was selling to the airlines, I used to do a lot of biscuits through the airlines. That was like, 99 cents or something to that effect. So I knew that I wanted a product like that. And I wanted to have a product that I could sell online because the thing called the internet was, certainly starting to pop its little head up. And so one day I was doing some what we call due diligence for a girlfriend of mine that wanted to buy put together a business that had little beauty brands in it, and what we called an indie beauty brand. So an indie beauty brand is a founder-owned beauty brand. And I did the due diligence for her, and I saw lipstick being made. It was a little tint by a company called Shazam. And I said to the man, I said, how much does it cost to fill that product? And he told me. I went, oh, okay, that's interesting. That could be this little product that I'm looking for that I don't know what this product is going to be. So I went home and I researched. This is back in 2006. I researched what was in lipstick, and I researched what was in makeup. I could not read the ingredient statement. I could not read the formulations for products. And I'm a food scientist, and I actually have been bestowed with a Master of Science as well, an Honorary Masters of Science from Newcastle University for my contribution. And I'm just going, if I can't read what's in here, what actually are we putting, or what is being put in these formulations, and what are we putting on our skin? And as we all know, what goes on our skin goes in. Think about how nicotine patches work. Think about how medicines are now delivered. So they go into our skin, they go into our bloodstream. And I'm just going, this is crazy. And when I actually deciphered what was in that formulation, I went, fats, colours, waxes, emulsifiers, stabilisers, texture modifying agents, all these different ingredients. But what was important to me is I just went, penny dropped. I can make lipstick from food. I can make makeup from food. Why are we putting crap on our skin when what goes on goes in? And so that was the light that went on. And I went, oh my gosh, I think I found my next business. This is great. Meanwhile, toddlers, little kids, all the rest of it. And we'd had this, I made this deal with my husband when we had our first child. We said, as soon as the second child pops out, we're going to sail around the world. So after second child popped out, and I really thought about it, I'm thinking nappies, boat, seas, die. This is not a good idea. We actually chartered a barge and we went and lived in France for 18 months and barged around the canals of France. But the reason I'm telling that part of the story is that between the 2006 and when we went and did that in 2009 and 2010, I had this wild dream that I was going to formulate the lipsticks and then I was going to sell them online. And when the kids went to bed during the day, went to bed at night, what was I possibly going to do? Oh, I was going to turn on the internet and I was going to sell lipsticks in Australia. Like, I don't know where I was. But I think that probably gives you an understanding of the, the gutso attitude and the I can do anything perspective that someone that starts their own business actually has. I think that was a total crazy idea. But what I did actually do when I found out what formulation was for lipstick and discovered that it was the fats and waxes and butters and things, I did start to formulate. So I went into my beauty kitchen, and the video they've got playing up there really is what happened. In my kitchen, I just started to play. So I had every possible oil you could think of, avocado oil, sesame seed oil, olive oils, castor seed oils, and all the rest of it. And I mean, I didn't know back then that every oil is different. Some are really, really greasy. Think about coconut oil. Like, can you get any greasier than coconut oil? Right? Think about argan oil and think about how beautiful and smooth it is because it actually replicates the sebum that's coming from your skin. And then you go through them all. So I got every possible wax possible. Like you hear about I can't even pronounce them, carnauba wax and candelilla waxes, and they're from plants. And they're the actual waxes that are used in your shoe polish and in various ingredients, but they're from plants and they're amazing. And that's why when you see plant leaves and the water just bounces off the drops, that's the wax in there. So I discovered that there were all these amazing ingredients, and all over my kitchen bench I had every possible wax and oil and butter you could think of. And I just sat there as a chemist, like I applied my days in the Sara Lee lab, and I put all the ingredients together. And so I would have the beeswax and then I would put all the different types of oils into it and I'd have a feel of the texture and see what it did. And I did that for, I don't know, about a year until I got the most amazing base to make a lipstick from. And then what I thought I would do is that I would then I would colour them, and I'd use beetroot juice and I'd use the carrot juice and all those beautiful ingredients, and I'd actually colour my lipsticks. What I learned is that it's really hard. You can't get that intensity of colour. You can't get the payoff. You can't get the performance of a product that you wanted, the MAC, number 27 or whatever it is. You can't get those sorts of colours from natural ingredients. We've progressed quite a bit in the industry in terms of the colours that you can get, but we're not yet there. So you need to then look for other ways of colouring lipstick in this case. And what I chose to do is to use the mineral oxides, because there was a whole mineral makeover change. Remember, everyone went to, mineral makeup? So the minerals were going, yes, they're healthy for our skin, they're better for our skin. And so I used minerals to first colour my Lip Nourish range. And because I couldn't get the colour, like in the minerals, you can't get a red colour, which means if you can't get red, you can't make corals, and you can't make pinks, and you can't make plum colours. And so I therefore went, I'm going to make a range of nudes and neutrals. So this is back in 2008, 2009. So I created the Lip Nourish range with a range of nudes and neutrals because that then fitted my philosophy. I just went, I don't wear much makeup. I don't really like makeup. I just want something that I can put on my lips that's delicious, that it doesn't matter if I eat it, and it just gives me a little bit of colour. And so going back 10 years, that kind of didn't exist. It just wasn't a philosophy that was around at that particular time. And what I also did is I took my chefing skills and I went, if I'm going to be using these beautiful food ingredients, it really makes sense that the product tastes delicious as well, and that it smells delicious, and that when I use that product, it really is a beautiful multi-sensory experience, and that I'm going to hand select what I use, and that I want to take enjoyment from that. So this whole sort of slow down in life, the kindness, the live consciously, it was decisions that I was sort of going through in the filter of making a product range that brought it to fruition. And I say that because I believe that every brand in this room and every indie beauty founder and woman and man that makes cosmetics today, they go through a similar journey to that. And so they really care about what they're doing. For you as a consumer, it's really hard to work out who are the real ones and who aren't the real ones, who's greenwashing, and when I read something about ingredients, what's right and what's wrong. And it's hard. And so when I'd created my product range and just flipping back, I wanted each one of them to taste beautiful. So what I did is I took all the beautiful organic cold-pressed essential oils, and I mixed those in different levels until they tasted amazing. So I took, for example, juniper berries and pink grapefruit peel and orange peel, and I diluted them. This goes back to my NPD, and I diluted them. And then I came up with this most amazing flavour. And then I put them into each of my lipsticks. So I thought, if I'm going to change the colour of each lipstick, it might as well have its own beautiful flavour as well, so that each time I sort of swap from one to the other, it tastes amazing. And so I used those ingredients to put into there. Now I want to flip back to what I was just going to say, because I just want to tell you about the different flavours. What was I going to say? The recipes. Okay, that's right. So after I actually formulated my products, I then went about into finding the best contract manufacturer that could actually make them for me, because you know how I talked about putting the mineral colours into my products? I couldn't formulate that. I could not get the colours right. It took an absolute expert to get the colours right in makeup, and to have a colour laboratory and work with what we call chromatography to make sure that the pigments are always the same and that they're consistent. So I actually use a manufacturer here in Melbourne, which is Australia's best colour manufacturer, to make my recipe. So I took my recipe, gave it to them, and I worked over years and put that together. And so that idea of when I was on the boat and I was going to sell my product, oh my gosh, so what happened is that we started to do all the formulations. I was getting the trial products. I couldn't speak French. I'm trying to meet the DHL on the side of the canal bank and get those samples. And then, the formulations are right, but then we actually failed all the packaging. The packaging started to split because I wanted a beautiful soft touch on it. And I just got to this point. I thought, oh, this is crazy. I'm just going to enjoy the kids and I'm going to put this on the back burner. And so I did. But what I did is when I came back in 2010 from overseas, I started to blog. And I started to blog about the beauty in food. And so what I'd actually learned is that, food really, it contains nutrients, it contains the actives, and it really makes sense if we use those food ingredients in the products that we use on our skin. And so what I did is I created the Beauty Kitchen blog. And I would then blog about what's in each of the ingredients. And I created beauty food cards, and I created information that I would then write posts on, and everybody would start to read it, and they would start this conversation. And at the same time, I was trying to get back into gear with having a business. Oh my God, how do I have a business in this day and age where there's the internet? And it was like a different world, and I'd sort of been in kids' land so long that it was hard. And so I started blogging about business as well as about the Beauty Kitchen. And so all that then morphed into me creating the Table of Fabulousness with all the business women in it, like so Lee Holmes and Alex Stewart and Michelle Chevalier-Hedge and all those lovely ladies all came to my place, and we'd all have lunch and I'd cook for them. And back then, all those years ago, we all around the table started the conversation on this clean beauty space, on clean living. And I look back now and think, oh my gosh, we really were pioneering this whole industry and this industry change. But what was important when I went to blogging is I didn't know where to start either, girls. I didn't have a clue what this was all about. I didn't know what products were out there. I didn't know what ingredients were good ingredients and what were bad ingredients. And so I originally researched, how do you make those first steps? What are the ingredients that I should be eliminating from my products? And if it's in the case of lipsticks, those ingredients are different to the ingredients that you'd eliminate from a body wash because it's a different formula. They're different to the ingredients that you'd eliminate from perfumes because they're different ingredients. And so it's a journey that when you set your mind on going clean to remove the ingredients that could be potentially endocrine disruptors, ingredients that could be giving you rashes, rosacea, ingredients that could be making you feel tired, ingredients that potential carcinogenic ingredients. It's a really big journey, and you've got to treat it as a journey, and you've got to treat it as, okay, what am I concerned about most? What are my issues that I have most? How am I going to start to do this change? And who am I going to look for to hold my hand to be able to do that change? You ladies are incredibly lucky because you have Kayla here, who you can come in and she can teach you and she can show you what to do, and she can offer you different products. Back in 2010, 2011, I was looking to Dr. Suzuki with his Dirty Dozen. I was looking to a lot of the groups that are in America, the environmental, I can't even remember now because it was so long ago that you now have your own knowledge. The major environmental working group, thank you. And there's a video that I'll never ever forget. Watching 10 years ago was this, this woman's or this person's hunt that was all in caricature of learning about going through the ingredients. And so on my beauty kitchen back those years ago, I just did the 10 steps to take yourself on the journey and where to get your initial information to create the awareness and then to help you make decisions on what ingredients you wanted to eliminate first. And because we have the internet now, because there is so much information, you can start to wise up and you can start to discover who the people are that you want to trust and whose hand you want to hold to move through that process. And I was saying to somebody that was here earlier, if it's the case of, for example, you want to reduce your chemical load on your body, because you're all going to hear that you put at least 150 chemicals on your body a day, when you actually look at everything from the soap to your deodorant to your foundations to your cleansers, and we'll go all over the place here, to your nail polishes. There's so many different ingredients that you put on your body. And if you just have a look at what you think your highest impact, and so if you start with your body washes, that's where you're going to want to start to take out your sulfates, your SLSs. Those ingredients are about foams. So you can't take an SLS out of a lipstick because it doesn't exist there to begin with. So each product is specific to the ingredients that you want to start to eliminate. Now, there's a lot of awareness on preservatives. So your parabens, we're all very aware of. Let's remove our parabens. Sulfates in food, we've all been eliminating. We don't want to have sulfates in the food. The sulfates are what we use in a lot of fruits to stop the products from discolouring. And so sulfates in beauty products you want to try and remove. Then there's other preservatives such as phenoxyolin that you want to start to remove. And so one of the reasons that you start to see a lot of the serums and face oils coming through is because us as indie brand creators, we can make a face oil and a beautiful serum that is concentrated active ingredients. But because there's no water in there, you don't need to use a preservative. And so this is why we see this wonderful availability of serums and facial oils and beautiful quality ingredients, because from a formulator, it's actually easier to do it. And those products weren't available through the big contract manufacturers, because what contract manufacturers were doing is highly processing their beauty products. So they'll take a highly refined oil, petroleum-based, because it's cheaper, and then you'll have a little bit of active going in. And the more uniform that product is in its texture, in its ingredients, in its viscosity, the faster you can produce it and the faster you can pump it out. And so the more highly processed your beauty products are, it means that you can increase your production capacity, you can bring down your costs. Now, that's exactly what happened in the food industry, right? Remember when we're not that old, but when our mothers went out to, started to go out to work, as a mother, you still had to cook, you still had to produce your food for your family at night. So you then started to buy processed foods and started to buy the fast food. But you didn't have enough money to buy the real foods because they were more expensive. And so these cheaper foods that were quicker to make. And this whole processed food industry was born out of women going into the workforce. And it's no different to the beauty industry. That's why our products are so processed. But what we're doing now is going back to simple recipes. We're going back to clean ingredients. And we're going back to taking control of what we're doing, putting in and on our bodies, because there's the knowledge there that's available for us, and there is now the choice of products that are available for us. So it's a pretty exciting period of time for us to be in. So that's a little bit of a mix-up of journey and formulating and where I've been able to get to today. But I think in terms of giving you advice in how do you make that transition, just find, Mukti that's going to be here. She's going to be here next Thursday, isn't she? Yeah. So Mukti's got a beautiful book called Truth in Beauty, and she will give you all the information that you need to know about what ingredients to look out for and what not to use. And I think it's a lovely place to start, to have that book on your coffee table, in your bed, just reading it, because it's a beautiful experience. It's far better than sitting online and, going to my beauty kitchen and reading something on your iPad. It's great, you've got the information, I can show you right here, and there you are. But it is a beautiful experience. And I haven't written a book because I'm way too busy. But I simplified everything when I went through. This is an old book of ours. But when I created my lipsticks, I just went, right, I want this to be 100% natural. Right, so that meant no synthetic colours in my lipsticks. And that's also the reason why I use carmine in my lipstick. Now, carmine is a natural red colour that's used in food. So my association with the food industry and getting rid of artificial colours and getting rid of artificial preservatives and that whole cleaning up of my food meant that I applied the same philosophy. So I used carmine to get my red colour when I started to create some pretty reds and pinks and corals in my range of Lip Nourish. Now, it's not vegan, okay? I'm not vegan. But I chose to go with carmine because I didn't want synthetic colours in my lipstick range. I chose not to have synthetic colours that are what we call FD and C colours because I don't want to have my colours that are lakes and bound to metals to create that colour. So that's a personal choice, and it's your personal choice whether or not you want to have all vegan products that use synthetic colours or whether you want to have 100% natural products in what you use. You're the only one that's going to be able to decide that. But then I chose to use the words toxin-free because people understand that they want to reduce the chemical load on their bodies. So toxin-free, chemical-free, I think is important. And so my definition of going toxin-free is the no synthetic dyes, it's the no preservatives, it's the no petrochemicals, it's the no phthalates. The phthalates are those ingredients that, for example, in a perfume will give it the ability for the aroma to hang around. In the case of lipsticks, you'll find phthalates because they're a texture modifying agent and they will give lipsticks slip. Whereas I went back to creating formulation where I had a beautiful texture that I got from the natural ingredients rather than using plastics. I'm about no lead and no heavy metals. I'm about no silicons because the silicons are plastics. I'm about no talc. I'm about no nanoparticles. And they are what I chose to put into my brand and what my brand represents. And then what I wanted to do was to use the food actives. So Lip Nourish is made from avocado oil because it's rich in vitamin E and because it's a very nourishing ingredient. Vitamin E is nourishing and avocado oil is the most beautiful oil to eat. And I mean, who loves eating avocados? So if you're going to eat avocados, let's put avocados on our skin, exactly. And then when I was talking about those cold-pressed organic citrus oils that I put into my lipsticks, the reason I also use those is that citrus is amazing to be antimicrobial. Citrus is amazing to be anti-inflammatory. So it's got beautiful natural properties, and so it makes sense once again to harness the beauty in food to put into the ingredients that we put on our skin. Okay, so I went through that little list for you because the best thing to do for yourself is to get your own list of what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. Because what you'll find is that you really need to be wise on what you will and won't accept as your standards, because learning to read an ingredient statement on a beauty product is just as important now as learning to read an ingredient statement on your food products, right? You care about what ingredients you look for in the foods that you eat. Now you start to care for the ingredients that are in the products that you have. And it just, once you've got your no list and your yes list, it makes it much, much easier, because you'll find that brands will actually try to, we've had a greenwashing conversation a couple of times in the room already today, that a lot of brands will say, we have this in it, we have this in it, we have this in it, we have this in it. But clean beauty is all about, and we don't have this, and we don't have this, and we don't have this. So you've got to look for the ingredients that you want, and you've got to make sure the ingredients that you don't want are in there, are not in there as well. Okay? So what I was going to say about the, actually just pass that round if you want. I'll just say that I created this book back in 2016. I've created a couple versions of this, but every time we come back from America, somehow the freight guys lose our freight, and they lose our special books that we've had made. But I never ended up writing a book, because back in 2016, when I took my business out of home, I did a capital raise, and I raised some money from what we call high net worth individuals to invest in the business, so I could put a little team together and I could invest in marketing and then create a beautiful range and create the point of sale and create the online beauty kitchen that I have now, where I share that information. And so I've got to tell you, setting up a business and running it professionally, oh my gosh, I actually have done very little marketing in 2 years. I have been back end looking after my shareholders and my investors and building my team and putting all the processes in place to be able to grow the business. And we're just coming out of that 2 year, you know how hard it is. I remember when you started, Kayla, how quickly you guys thought it would be to set up your business here. How much longer did it take you to do? Yeah, many months. Yeah. So it takes a lot longer to do what you think you're going to do. And it's great, because I'm now starting to come out of that. And that means that my range of 12 Lip Nourish that we now sell around the world in places like Anthropology, Neiman Marcus. Next week, the week after, we're actually going into Russia. We had this amazing Russian company contact us to say that they wanted to buy our product. And that's because Russia is looking to Australia for its clean beauty products. Like, it's so exciting. What we're doing here in this country, we are pioneering the world in clean beauty. And that's because you ladies are supporting those purchases and you're supporting the brands. And because of Australia being clean and green, and because of our, lack of pollution that we have down under, it means that countries all over the world are coming to us and looking to us. So this chain that we're going into, they have 1,000 stores. It makes Sephora look like the little sister. It's this business called Lük, and it's like Sephora on steroids. And like, they've got people dressing, guys and girls in suits, and it's so bright and shiny and like non-clean beauty. But they recognise where the growth is in this industry, and so they're coming to Australia to find those brands. So it's so exciting that this whole move from heritage brands and chemical-filled brands is happening, and that we are in this movement together, like we're creating it. It's a very exciting period of time. So I think you'll feel very welcome and very happy in your tribe. Now, I'm just blubbering on at the moment. What would you like me to discuss a little bit more? Maybe we should open the floor to some questions so I can be specific in some answers. sure. Look, yeah, yes and no. I mean, it's fascinating. When you create your first business, you just jump in, boots and all, you don't know anything, and you just go for it. And so you're a duck paddling at 1,000,000 miles an hour, and you see opportunities and you run after them. And even though you've got a business plan over here, you kind of totally, put it away and you just keep doing things. And you're so gung-ho. And it was actually it's interesting that you say that, and I was going to mention this. It was what I did in that Luken May business that somebody said to me, if you could bottle what you did at Luken May and then sell it, you'll be a very successful businesswoman in your next business. And when I saw that little lipstick and it actually ticked all those boxes, I just went, oh my God, that one lipstick exemplifies everything about what I was doing at Luken May and the biscuit company. I know that sounds bizarre, but it really was. It made sense to me that, I had so much energy because I was following my passion. I had lots of energy because I actually would eat really well, and I used to exercise and I used to look after myself. So I could just work so hard without burning out and without feeling tired and without showing any signs of stress. And so it's where that whole philosophy of harnessing the beauty in food to put into a complete beauty range came from. So Lük Beautifood, it's called Lük Beautifood because I'm going to make full range of cosmetics. I'll do full range of skincare, and I'll do full range of inner body care, and I'll do that. And that's why the tagline on my brand is called "Be Delicious Inside and Out," because I want to do a lot of products. But when I do something, I want to do it really well, and that's why I've still only got 12 lipsticks. Because we're selling thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of these lipsticks now. So I wanted to get that right, and I wanted to come out of the office, and I wanted to then be able to get back out and market. But the difference is that when I created Lük Beautifood, I was so organised, so structured, and so focused. And that's why we have 12 lipsticks. When I had my biscuit range, I had 100 biscuits. I was always creating new biscuits. Creating new products, going out and selling more. Oh, those don't work, put some more in, and you're just like playing, creating. Whereas here I'm incredibly structured in what I do. I'm incredibly analytical now in what I do. And I get everything right before I move to the next step. Now, that could be experience in business, that could be age, that could be I just don't have enough time because I've got kids, I don't know. But the way that I've approached my first business versus my second business are very, very different. Very different. So, how did you settle on the 12 colours? I know you started out with the nudes. So I started out with the 7 nudes and neutrals. And then tangerine pomegranate was the first one when I then put the carmine in. So that's the one that I'm wearing now. So tangerine pomegranate is this one here. And it's a beautiful colour. That's it there. So it's a really beautiful colour. And then I think the next 2 that came, I just did as a limited edition, the ruby grapefruit, and then the peach melon. So we just did these for summer. So it was summertime and decided that we just wanted to do 2 limited edition. But because everybody loved these 2 colours here, our customers said, can you please keep them in the range throughout the year? So they just therefore fell into the range. And then that's when I then must have moved the business out of home. And then I put on a head of sales and marketing. And so they said, I think we should do a plum. I went, right, okay, let's do a plum. So it's very scientific how we did it. So then we did a plummy colour. And then we said, there was another one that we did. What was the other one that we did? Oh, the cranberry citrus. And then I said, I really want to do one that's a bit more bright and orangey. And so we did. Incredibly technical. We did a lot of research. We went and found out what all the best sellers in the world were for makeup. We then copied those colours. Not. So you can tell that I'm not a makeup junkie, can't you? So it's a bit bizarre that I'm actually making lipstick. But I mean, look how beautiful they are. And our customers absolutely love them. And the other thing is, it depends where you sell them as to what's liked. We are discovering at the moment that the ruby grapefruit is absolutely loved by our Asian client base. We find that more mature ladies love the cranberry citrus and the plum, we find that the younger girls really do like the tea rose and the rose lime and the pink juniper. They're just really soft, pretty neutral colours. And my brand sells to everybody that is interested in a cleaner product and a beautiful product, and a product that is, Lip Nourish is, it's a sheer to medium pigment. It's not a highly pigmented lipstick. It's not trying to be a fashion statement. It's a product that lives in your It's a product that lives in your pocket, that you apply it all the time, and because it tastes amazing, feels so creamy and soft and smooth that you just want to keep putting it on. And it's a and so the whole role of Lip Nourish are feed, moisturise, and protect your lips, whilst giving a little bit of colour and that lovely, healthy, natural look. So, I think in the next year or two I'll probably get into the range and I'll probably finesse some of them, because tea rose and rose lime are incredibly similar, but one's a little bit blue, but one's a little bit yellow. They're in the nudes and neutrals. We'll probably bring out more. I've developed a couple more shades, but I haven't brought them out. I just still keep the 12, because we bring more out, then you've got to swap them over, and then it becomes complicated. And then you get customers saying, but we love that one, where's it gone? But what I would like to do is a range of lip ritual products, so to actually do a tube with a really, really nourishing base formulation, and to do little pots, and then I'd like to do bright colours. And then the range of inner beauty products that I created back in 2012, and I did all the research on them and worked with a company up in Queensland creating them, which is why I originally did the capital raise, was to launch those back in 2015. I never did, so maybe I'll bring those out as well. But at the moment, I've got a little team of 5-6 girls, and we're paddling really hard, keeping up with selling our Lip Nourish. So that's what we have now in our range. And also, every time you put a new SKU in the case of myself, I want to make sure that it's done really well. And so, it takes a long time and, big production runs. But, yeah.
Do you think we'll see a time where the regulators will catch up and governments, or whoever's responsible, will kind of eliminate the ability for the majors to use some of these toxic kind of ingredients? So I think there's a bit of a wave, as you said, towards it. And then I think naturally, because that's where the growth is going to be, they're going to move towards that, because that's where the money is. But equally, do you think the regulators will catch up to kind of actually...
I think it's still a long way away. And that's because if you look at food, say for example, we look at Australia, and there's different legislations everywhere. If we look at Australia, we've got the Australian food standards. And so there is a standard that says what you can put in the food, what we can eat. It says how you can handle it, what you can call it. There's a whole lot of detail behind it. And then we have the government at a state level and then at a council level that then regulates that. So when you have a regulation, you actually need to be able to have a way of making sure that everybody's complying. And that is a very big standard, and it takes a lot to get to that point. In the beauty industry, we have the TGA. Well, not in the beauty industry, but in the personal care industry, we have the TGA. And so that governs any products that have a claim that says, it will, for example, we look at sunscreen where it actually needs to have a protective benefit. So it will actually govern those products. Beauty products per se, there's nowhere that they fall into. The only thing that controls it here in Australia is that there's a list of chemicals that you're allowed to use. And that's what we call the inky ingredients. And it says you can use this or you can't use that. So nothing actually governs what can go into a product in Australia. What has happened in America at the moment is that they're actually looking to establish a law, because the California, not in America full say, but in California, because it's very proactive in environmental legislation and in the beauty industry. So it's looking at actually passing laws so that any ingredient that has research that says it's linked to cancer or changes in the body, they're looking to remove it. Europe is much more controlled than what we are. They have what's called, or regulated than what we are. They have what's called Nat Tru. And Nat Tru is where natural ingredients can get a stamp for being natural, because at the moment we can have an organic stamp, but you can have an organic stamp and you can still use ingredients that aren't. There's a difference between certified organic and having organic ingredients. But you can still, if you're using organic ingredients, have ingredients that are what I would call non-preferred ingredients. We don't have anything that controls natural ingredients or 100% natural ingredients in Australia, any certification body that has credibility really behind it. But in Europe they do, they have what's called Nat True, and so there's standards there that are much higher than what we have here in Australia. So I think we've got a long way to go. But I think that self-regulation through consumer selection of products and what we're seeing in the industry of clean green products are growing at between 10 and 20% per annum, and I won't say chemical filled, but heritage brands and the traditional brands, they're growing at a much, much slower rate. So what's happening is that even traditional retailers are needing to put clean beauty products into their spaces to sell them, because the growth rate is over here, not here. This is stagnant. And what's also happening is that a lot of the big traditional beauty retailers, the independent retailers, they're struggling to be able to buy small brands, because we're all much smaller and we don't have EDI and we don't have all these bigger systems that you're supposed to have to sell to them. And so they're creating incubators where they're holding the hand of brands. We're seeing a lot of that happening in America, where Sephora, where Target, for example, Target in America wants to be the biggest clean beauty brand retailer in the States. And so they're doing incubator programs. And lovely Shay here from Black Chicken, she just went into their incubator program. Not that she's telling anyone, but anyhow, so Shay's going to the incubator program. That's because I always go to America and do the Indie Beauty Expo, and that's how we've got some of the most amazing customers in America. And so we shared a stand over there, and they absolutely loved her product. They don't get deodorant where you put your fingers in and put it under your arms. They're just like, oh my God. So I think there is so much activity in this space that we are just really at the tip of the iceberg in the changes that we're going to make. And it's people like Kayla and John with this business that are going to pioneer it. The fact that we've got clean beauty, dedicated space that you can come hang out, you can tell everybody, you can create the energy, you can help build the brands, that's going to start rocking the boat, I think. Yes?
I'm just curious, you said that you spent 18 months in France.
Yes.
What did you exactly do?
We barged through the canal. So Carl was 2.5 and Ciara was 10 months old. And we packed up our house, we rented it out, we went across to France and we got on this boat. As I said, my husband is a naval architect and boat builder, so he's very experienced in boats. We got our inland water certificate and I beat him, yes, in the test as I was breastfeeding, and I had my mum over there looking after the kids that was trying to learn how to drive a barge. And we just took time to be together to raise the children in the first couple of years, where it was like, we went to IKEA, decked out the boat with the IKEA stuff, and we could just sit down and draw with the children and just, put them on the back of the bike and ride through the villages and just stop at little markets and just slow down and just live life just every day. And it was the most beautiful, incredible experience. It was fantastic. It was enjoyable. It was exhausting. It was absolutely exhausting, because if you think about how much food a family of 4 consume, and you've got 2 bikes. I still got pictures of me with nappies hanging off there, because I always did cloth nappies, and when we got on the boat I just thought I'd do cloth nappies. Meanwhile, in the ice, walking up to the Vauxhall and trying to get the washing machine on and drying, let's just forget it, I'm going disposable nappies. and with toilet paper one side of the bike, the nappies on the other, and all that food. Like on the back of a bike, we wore out 2 bikes in 18 months because we just were carrying so much weight on them. So there I am with a kid behind me with the toilet paper, and like, so cycling. So going to get your provisions to last for a couple of days would take up half a day. And then I had this bizarre story where I'd always used, back in when Mecca first opened up, they brought out a range called Defan, and there was a waterless balm, a purifying balm in their range. And so it was back in 1998 that I started to use oils and waterless balms on my skin. And they were horrendously expensive. Like, it was like $120 a pot for this little waterless balm. And then the chamomile oil was like $80 for a pot, and was just like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And so I was trying to 10 years later, I was trying to wean myself off this brand, going, there's got to be other brands that I can find that are a fraction of the price. And so I stopped using them. And my skin just wasn't the skin that I'd had for the last 10 years. And so one day, I got on my bike and I rode 64 kilometres because I worked out there was this chemist in some little village that would sell this product. So that, one day that took me the entire day to ride to that village and back with my little pot of gold that I was trying so desperately to give up. But I think that was very symbolic of, once you find the right product, and I tell you, I still use that product today. For all these beautiful products, I still use the Defan Purifying Balm from France, and it kills me that I do. But I can't change from it because it is so beautiful, and it's so aromatic, and I think it's just been with me for so long that it's my chill out, cooling thing. So yeah, we ate, we went to galleries, we had friends that would come and stay. We just got into the groove of life. I'd sold my business, so we were in the fortunate position that we could rent out our house and then live without working on the boat. And it was amazing. We went through Champagne 3 times. Like, got kids in the tasting rooms drinking champagne. We went through the caves, everything you can think of. All those beautiful places, we climbed the Eiffel Tower. I mean, I've driven the barge. I drove our barge. It was an 80-foot, 80-ton barge. It was just like crazy. And so I've driven the barge down the Seine. We would pick up people when we'd go out, and they'd want to come barging with us. So we'd invite people onto the boat, and we couldn't speak a word of French. It was hilarious. So we had a great time. It was a terrific time.
What makes me most curious about that is that you are a very ambitious entrepreneur. And how can you because I can't imagine myself, from what I heard, you completely shut off from work.
Yeah.
And
remember what I said is that when I had Lük Beautifood, when I had Luken May, I couldn't work out how to have kids and have a business at the same time, because if I was going to do something, I want to do it really well. So what I just went is, okay, I must admit, I was 39, I was 38, and thinking, oh my God, I'm going to have kids soon, I'm going to be, too old. And so what I did is I sold the business, had some time out, and then went, okay, kids now. And so I dedicated myself to that. So I then threw myself into being mum. But I did say to my husband, I did say to him that I was really worried that when I had children that I'd be really unhappy, and that I was going to leave him, like I potentially could leave him and, go start a business or just do something else, because I'd be stuck in babyland. And I already knew that just being in babyland, being mum at home, whilst he's at work and I didn't have my, my business and everything else, that I was scared. And so that's where we came up with the idea of sailing around the world. But because then that was absolutely stupid, we decided that barging in France was a much better idea, because it still had the passion for boats, but we could step off the boat if it sunk. It was never going to sink too far in a canal. And I still, as you remember, I had that idea that, those lipsticks that I'd started to formulate, I really did think I was going to sell them online when I was barging around France, but the bottom of the Loire, the internet just wasn't strong enough. It was ridiculous. And then the other thing is that when we were on that boat, when we got off that boat at the end of 2010, we said, okay, when is our next trip? What are we going to do? And we said, what we're going to do is, when the kids are in 3rd and 5th class, we are going to get a caravan, and we're going to tour around Australia for a year, and we're going to do the same thing. We bought a caravan. We have a off-road caravan, a fully equipped off-road caravan, and we have a 4-wheel drive. It's up at Broome at the moment, and so we took the kids out of school, not last year, the year before, and we did a term because there's a little bit of a sad part to the story here, and I probably can't tell you. I'll try later. I'll come back to it. And so it was just about goal setting. It was just saying, this is what we're going to do and this is how we're going to do it. Okay, and so, we bought that caravan. So what happened though is that I actually did the capital raise in the business, and in doing the capital raise in this business to set it up, I then made a conscious decision that I wasn't going to be able to do the year travelling around Australia in the caravan. But I also thought that was probably a really good idea, and that Tony, my husband, could take the kids and travel around Australia in the caravan, and I would fly in and fly out. So I thought I'll get the best of both worlds. I can have the business and I can fly in and fly out. So what happened with that is that we bought the caravan, I got the investment in the business, and then my husband was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's. So life has changed a little bit, which is one of the reasons why I don't go full into everything like I used to. But what I'm doing is being a little bit more conservative, which probably answers your question. The difference in the two businesses is that I'm now setting up our family for life because my husband won't be able to contribute and doesn't contribute now to what we do. So it's a little bit different. So you'll find during life you get things thrown at you that you then need to adjust to. But we're just like, I have a hashtag which is called Making Memories, and that's what we do. So everything I do, I turn it into a memory. So I've just booked him a trip right now to sail from LA to Honolulu in what's called the Transpac. He's done 34-35 Sydney to Hobart. I get him on those boats still. He's with crew that look after him, and so I now make sure that as a family we stay together, but I now use this business as an absolute tool or ability to set us up. So everything I do in my business, there's a reason behind it that will look after us and the family going forward. So you never know what's going to throw you. And the really sad part of this story is that I'm so healthy, he is so healthy, we have lived so healthy, and sickness can still strike you no matter what. So that's what I've just mentioned there is not public knowledge. I don't talk about it. It's not that you can't say anything, but I don't advertise it. I don't go out and tell the story for media or anything. I just cope with it on a day-to-day life, and we just get out there and we just do it. Because everybody is touched in some way by some sort of illness or by something that they can't control, and so nobody's extra special in what actually happens. But yeah, so there's, what decisions you make and what you do are thrown at you. And yeah, I'm someone, if I'm going to do something, I do it well. And so it's a little bit hard because I want to throw myself in this 24/7, and I can't. I've got 2 kids that I look after. I also care for my mother. She was the same 6 months before my husband was diagnosed. My mother was diagnosed and given a year to live. So it's just like, if you want to have anything thrown at you, just build up your resilience. Just eat well to build up your resilience to be able to cope with whatever is thrown at you, which is one of the reasons more why whatever you put on your body, make sure that it's good for you, so that you just give yourself that extra strength and that extra ability to tackle whatever is thrown at you. So yeah. But yeah, being an entrepreneur, once it's in you, you can't help but do it. Any other questions?
What's the shelf life of your...
It's 24 months from opening. And the reason it is that lipstick has no water in it. So it's just its fats and oils. And so you don't actually need to have a preservative in there to keep any moulds from growing, because they're never going to grow. There's zero water activity. And then those lovely citrus and spice oils that I put into it, they help keep the natural fats from oxidising, so they don't go rancid. And you find that chemical-filled lipsticks, they go off quite quickly. That's because they use hydrogenated oils. So the hydrogenated oil, do you think about margarine? So margarine is actually oils and it's hydrogenated, and they change the chemical structure of the oil to turn it into a solid. That's the same as the oils that are used in lipsticks, where they're the petroleum-based lipsticks. So those oils that are hydrogenated, they want to undo themselves. So that's why preservatives are used in more traditional chemical-filled style lipsticks. What I was going to say to you, and there's this little thing about, you all know how many lipsticks you eat in a year, and therefore in a lifetime, so anywhere from 2 to 4 kilos. But most of the lipsticks that you're eating contain this much plastic in your lifetime. And that's because a lipstick's composed of at least 70% waxes and oils. So if those are petroleum-based, they are synthetic. And that's actually what you're consuming. So that's why we have the little saying, would you like plastic or food on your lips, girls? Not hard, is it? Not hard to work out what you'd actually like on your lips. So yes, there we go. Any more questions?
Thank you very much, Cindy, for sharing such a fascinating story and really inspiring us today. Your life journey is just amazing, and it's so beautiful.
It's pretty full on. And I could tell you a lot more about the lipsticks, but you know what, you can just discover that. I think it's more about the little stories that, they're just, basically they're beautiful, so just wear them, buy them.